The glass doors of Mercy General's emergency wing slid open at 2:47 a.m., and Samantha Pierce didn't look up from the chart in her hands. Another late-night admission. Another crisis to manage. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as she scribbled notes about her previous patient, a 7-year-old with pneumonia who'd finally stabilized after 6 hours of touch and go. Dr. Pierce, Trauma Bay 3. The voice crackled through her pager. Samantha's sneakers squeaked against the linoleum as she jogged down the corridor, her dark ponytail swinging. 5 years as an ER pediatrician had taught her that seconds mattered. The metallic smell of blood hit her before she reached the bay. A man lay on the gurney, his custom suit soaked crimson, his face pale as hospital sheets. But his eyes were open, alert, fixed on the small bundle a paramedic was carefully extracting from his arms. "Sir, we need to examine you," Samantha said, snapping on gloves. "My daughter first." His voice was rough, commanding despite the obvious pain. "Check her first." The paramedic handed Samantha a girl who couldn't be more than 4, her blonde curls matted with someone else's blood. Samantha's trained hands moved quickly, checking for injuries, listening to the steady thump of a healthy heart. "She's fine, not a scratch," Samantha said, relief flooding through her. "Just scared." The girl's wide blue eyes found the man on the gurney. "Daddy." "Right here, sweetheart." He tried to sit up and immediately collapsed back, his jaw clenched. "Don't move," Samantha ordered, turning her attention to the man. Multiple lacerations across his chest and arms, possible internal bleeding. "What happened?" "Car accident. Drunk driver T-boned us." He winced as she probed his ribs. "I covered Emma, made sure nothing touched her." Samantha felt something shift in her chest. This man had used his own body as a shield. "You might have a punctured lung. We need X-rays, CT scan." "I don't care what you need to do." His eyes locked on hers, intense and unwavering. "Just make sure someone stays with Emma. She's terrified of hospitals." "I'll stay with her myself," Samantha heard herself say. 4 hours later, Samantha sat in the pediatric waiting room with Emma sleeping against her shoulder. The girl had refused to let go, tiny fingers wrapped in Samantha's scrub top. Down the hall, her father was in surgery. Ruptured spleen, 3 broken ribs, internal bleeding that had nearly killed him. "Dr. Pierce," a nurse poked her head in. "Mr. Blackwood's out of surgery, stable. He's asking for his daughter." Blackwood. Samantha's exhausted brain finally made the connection. Alexander Blackwood. The Alexander Blackwood who owned half of Chicago's real estate, whose face appeared on Forbes covers, whose charitable foundation funded the very hospital where she worked. She carried Emma down the sterile corridor, past rooms filled with beeping machines and hushed conversations. Alexander was awake, his powerful frame diminished by hospital equipment, but his eyes blazed with relief when he saw his daughter. "Daddy." Emma wiggled free, and Samantha carefully placed her on the edge of the bed. "Hey, princess," his voice cracked. "You okay?" "The nice doctor stayed with me the whole time. She told me stories and didn't leave even when other doctors needed her." Alexander's gaze found Samantha's over his daughter's head. "Thank you." "Just doing my job," Samantha said, though they both knew that wasn't entirely true. She'd handed off 3 other cases to colleagues to stay with Emma. "I owe you a debt, Dr. Pierce." "You owe me proper rest and following doctor's orders." She checked his IV, professional mask back in place. "You'll be here at least a week." "A week?" He looked horrified. "Would you prefer a coffin? Because that's what continuing to work would get you." Samantha crossed her arms. "Your daughter needs her father alive, Mr. Blackwood." Something flickered in his expression. Respect, maybe. Fair enough, but Emma can't stay in a hospital for a week. She'll be miserable. "I have a nanny, but she's visiting family in Maine," he continued, frustration bleeding into his voice. My parents are in Europe. My brother's in Tokyo closing a deal. Samantha watched Emma trace the patterns on the blanket, humming softly to herself. A little girl who just survived a terrifying accident, who had no mother. Samantha had noted the absence of any maternal figure during intake, and whose father would be hospitalized for days. The words came out before she could stop them. She could stay with me. Alexander's head snapped up. What? I have a spare room. My shifts are manageable this week. She'd be safe, comfortable, and close enough to visit you daily. Samantha couldn't believe she was suggesting this. I'm a pediatrician. I'm literally trained for this. You don't even know us. I know you took metal and glass meant for her. I know she trusts me, and I know what it's like to be a scared kid in a hospital. Samantha met his gaze steadily. Let me help. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the rhythmic beeping of monitors. Finally, Alexander nodded. One condition, I pay you. Absolutely not. Dr. Pierce. Samantha, and no. She softened her tone. Consider it paying forward. Someone helped me once when I needed it. This is me doing the same. That night, Samantha drove home with Emma buckled in the back seat of her 10-year-old Honda, chattering about her favorite cartoons. Her apartment was modest, cluttered with medical journals and takeout containers, nothing like the mansion Emma probably came from. This is cozy, Emma announced, exploring the living room with wide eyes. Like a dollhouse. Samantha smiled, watching the girl touch everything with gentle curiosity. Hungry, I make excellent grilled cheese. Over sandwiches and apple juice, Emma talked. About her daddy who worked too much but always read her bedtime stories. About her goldfish named Sir Bubbles. About her mommy who lived in heaven with the angels. Do you have kids? Emma asked suddenly. No, just me here. Are you lonely? The question hit harder than it should have. Samantha thought about her empty apartment, her non-existent social life, the way she filled every hour with work to avoid thinking about the family she didn't have. Sometimes, she admitted, but I have my patients, they need me. Daddy needs you too, Emma said seriously. I can tell. Over the next week, Samantha's life transformed. She'd wake up to Emma making breakfast in the kitchen, which usually meant cereal everywhere. They'd drive to the hospital together, Emma clutching the drawings she'd made for her father. Alexander's room became a hub of activity, Emma coloring on the floor, Samantha reviewing charts in the corner chair, Alexander conducting business calls he wasn't supposed to be making. You're impossible, Samantha scolded one afternoon, snatching his phone away mid-call. Your body needs rest. My company needs. Your company has a board of directors. Use them. She glared at him. Or I'll have the nurses confiscate every electronic device you own. Alexander stared at her, then laughed. Actually laughed. You're terrifying. I'm effective. She handed the phone back. 1 hour, then you rest. Yes, ma'am. Something was happening between them. Samantha felt it in the way Alexander watched her with Emma, in the conversations that stretched long after visiting hours ended, in the comfortable silences that felt more intimate than words. On the 5th day, Emma fell asleep against Samantha's side during story time, and Samantha looked up to find Alexander studying them with an expression she couldn't read. What? She asked softly. She hasn't been this relaxed since, he trailed off. Since before the accident that took her mother, 3 years ago. Samantha's heart clenched. Alexander. I've spent 3 years trying to be enough for her, working myself to exhaustion, building an empire so she'd never want for anything. But I can't give her what you gave her in 5 days. His voice was raw. A sense of safety, of home. You almost died protecting her. That's love, Alexander. That's everything. Is it? Because lately I'm wondering if providing and protecting is enough. or if I've been running from the fact that I'm scared to death of failing her. Samantha moved to sit on the edge of his bed, careful of his healing injuries. You're not failing her, you're healing. There's a difference. His hand found hers, warm and solid. How did you get so wise? Medical school and terrible life choices, she said, trying to lighten the moment. But her hand stayed in his. Tell me about you, Alexander said. The real you. Not Dr. Pierce who saves lives, but Samantha who takes in strangers' children and lives on coffee and determination. So she told him. About growing up in foster care, bouncing between homes. About the pediatrician who'd treated her broken arm when she was 8 and inspired her career. About medical school debt that still kept her in a modest apartment. About the loneliness of building a life alone. I wanted kids someday, she admitted. A family. But the right person never came along, and now I'm 32 and wondering if I missed my chance. You're 32, not 92. Easy for you to say. You already have Emma. And no idea what I'm doing half the time, Alexander said quietly. You think I'm not terrified. Every decision, every moment, wondering if I'm enough. They talked until Emma woke up, rubbing her eyes and complaining she was hungry. Samantha took her to the cafeteria, but her thoughts stayed in that room, with a man who was nothing like she'd expected. On the 7th day, Alexander was discharged. His driver arrived with a town car that cost more than Samantha's annual salary. Emma cried, clinging to Samantha in the hospital lobby. I don't want to go. I want to stay with you. Oh, sweetheart. Samantha knelt, brushing blonde curls from Emma's face. You need to go home with your daddy. But I'll miss you. I'll miss you too. The words hurt more than Samantha expected. But you can visit, okay? Anytime you want. Alexander stood awkwardly nearby, his expression unreadable. Thank you, Samantha, for everything. Take care of those ribs, no heavy lifting, and actually rest this time. I will, he hesitated. Maybe we could. I'd like to take you to dinner to thank you properly. Her heart did something stupid and hopeful. You don't need to thank me. What if I want to? His eyes held hers. What if this isn't about obligation? Before she could answer, Emma tugged her hand. Say yes, please say yes. Samantha laughed, her professional composure cracking. Yes, okay, yes. The dinner happened 3 days later at a restaurant Samantha couldn't afford on her own. Alexander looked different in a suit that fit him perfectly, his injuries hidden beneath expensive fabric. But his smile when he saw her was the same one from the hospital, warm and genuine. You look beautiful, he said. Samantha glanced down at her one nice dress, suddenly self-conscious. You clean up pretty well yourself. How are the ribs? Healing. My company's still standing. And Emma asks about you every 5 minutes. Just Emma. Maybe not just Emma. His hand covered hers on the table. I can't stop thinking about you, Samantha. About the way you stayed with Emma. The way you called me on my bullshit. The way you made a hospital room feel like something other than a place where people suffer. Alexander. I know this is fast. Crazy, even. We've known each other a week. But I've built an empire on trusting my instincts, and every instinct I have says you're something rare. Something real. Samantha's breath caught. I'm a pediatrician with student loans and a tiny apartment. You're lonely, he interrupted. Successful and miserable, and so damn lonely I've forgotten what it feels like to connect with someone. Until you. This is insane. Probably, he squeezed her hand. But Emma needs a mother. I need someone who sees past the money and the reputation. And you deserve to be loved, Samantha, really loved. Not by some polished Prince Charming, but by a workaholic single father who's terrified of screwing this up. She should say no. This was too fast, too much, too complicated. But when she looked at Alexander, she didn't see the billionaire or the CEO. She saw the man who'd used his body to shield his daughter, who'd laughed at her scolding, who'd opened up about his fears. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Me too." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you." The months that followed were a whirlwind. Alexander courted her properly, with flowers and thoughtful gestures. But more than that, he integrated her into his life. Dinner with Emma became routine. Weekend trips to the zoo. Late-night conversations after Emma was asleep. Emma bloomed under Samantha's attention, and Samantha discovered a maternal instinct she'd thought might never surface. Reading bedtime stories, braiding hair before school, kissing scraped knees and dispensing wisdom about playground politics. "She calls you Mommy now," Alexander said one evening, watching Samantha tuck Emma in. "When you're not around. My mommy's Samantha." Samantha's eyes burned. "Is that okay?" "It's everything." He pulled her close. "You're everything." 6 months after that night in the emergency room, Alexander proposed. Not with some elaborate public display, but quietly, in Samantha's apartment where it all started, with Emma holding the ring box and bouncing with excitement. "Marry us," he said simply. "Be Emma's mother officially. Be my wife. Build this messy, beautiful life with us." Samantha looked at the two of them, this family that had crashed into her life through trauma and emerged as her greatest blessing. Yes, God, yes. The wedding was small, held in the hospital garden where Samantha had spent so many breaks during Alexander's recovery. Emma was flower girl, throwing petals with abandon. Dr. Martinez, who'd operated on Alexander, walked Samantha down the aisle. "You saved more than his body that night," Dr. Martinez whispered. "You saved his soul." Maybe they'd saved each other. Alexander taught Samantha that she deserved love, that her past didn't define her worth. And Samantha taught Alexander that vulnerability wasn't weakness, that being a father meant being present, not just providing. A year later, Samantha stood in the nursery they'd built together, holding their newborn son while Emma sang lullabies. Alexander wrapped his arms around them all, his chin resting on Samantha's shoulder. "Thank you," he murmured. "For what?" "For running into that trauma bay, for staying with Emma, for taking a chance on a wounded man and his terrified daughter." Samantha leaned back against him, feeling the steady beat of his heart. "Thank you for covering Emma, for trusting me with her, for showing me what family feels like." Emma looked up from where she was gently touching her baby brother's hand. "This is what happy endings look like, right, Mommy?" "No, baby," Samantha smiled through tears. "This is what happy beginnings look like." Outside, Chicago glittered with lights, endless and bright. Inside, they had everything that mattered. Love found in crisis, trust built through vulnerability, and the understanding that sometimes the best things come not when we're looking for them, but when we're brave enough to stay when destiny walks through glass doors at 2:47 a.m. The emergency room would always be part of their story. The place where Alexander almost died and Samantha almost missed her chance at family. But it also taught them the most important lesson, that love doesn't wait for perfect timing or ideal circumstances. It arrives messy and urgent and absolutely essential, demanding only that we have the courage to say yes. And they had, again and again and again.